Welcome to Midpoint, OCC's midweek podcast aimed at helping you connect with last week's message and prepare you for next week's sermon. Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome to Midpoint, your midweek connection to Orchards Community Church. I'm here with Wesley.
Hello.
And we are going to be talking about the WB ruin. We ruined the story of Samson. Actually, Samson kind of ruined that for himself.
He did, yeah.
But we're going to be talking about that, and then also what to expect this week in church, and coming up on we've got a new service style, and then also continuing on in our series through Anchored. So, anyways, hi Wesley.
Hello. How are you doing, Brenton? This has been a weekend for you.
This has been a very long weekend. Yeah, Good weekend, but yeah, just a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Just coming off the end of October event that we did for the youth, which was really fun.
Yes. I don't even know that you stepped off the stage on Sunday. It was like WB show done, straight into setting up for practice.
Yeah. And then, lights and boom.
Yeah.
Jump right in.
Which was good stuff.
But I got to play my guitar, so that's always fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I got to do some ZZ Top, so that was fun. Got to do a little improv solos, so that was kind of fun.
Yeah. You had hair.
I did have hair. Yeah. That's always fun.
Yeah. It was a good time. It was a good time. Yeah, well, we didn't get any questions, which means that theologically we nailed it.
Yeah. They were like, next story.
Next story, yeah. I work at...
We're good.
We're good. Yeah. So now the next however many minutes this is going to be will be a punishment.
Yeah.
To everybody.
Man, there were so many questions that you could have taken this.
Oh yeah.
But part of me is like, okay, I'm glad I didn't have any questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, Samson is a weird story.
It is a weird story.
It was really cool. I won't say her name, but somebody asked us, like, why did God include the story of Samson in the Bible? Because it's extremely messy. Mm-hmm. And there's so many just like, man, why? You know? Mm-hmm. And just to answer it and just go, it's because we're messy too. Like, this is our lives, before God. If you lay it all out, lay out all our sins, lay out all our struggles, like, I mean, that's kind of how we come to the cross, is we're broken as well. And God's like, hey, I'm still going to use you. I'm still going to do some amazing things through you. And, so it's like, it gives me confidence of like, oh, okay, God can use Samson. He can use me too, because I'm just as bad sometimes. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, and I mean, it's kind of interesting. I don't know that this is the case necessarily, but Samson even is kind of a reflection of Israel in some ways, because like, okay, they get rescued from the Philistines, but like Israel just stays as Israel.
Yeah.
like
they don't learn.
They're not
lesson.
like, oh, we're so glad.
Thanks, God. Now I'm going to be all better.
Yeah, that's not how it goes.
No,
at all. Yeah. So. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of places that a lot of different directions that we could have gone on this one. One of the things is that I heard a podcast just about how, like if it was just about religious leaders falling from grace for whatever reason, and a guy was just kind of trying to analyze like what like should I just disband everything that this guy ever said, or whatever that is, and he kind of used the story of Samson as a application of like what we should do with that kind of stuff. Like no, God is still working in that stuff. You can't you can say that person was broken, but God is still in that, and you need to not be blind to that portion.
Yeah. And that's so crazy. Like, crazy good. Mm-hmm. Like that's. Yeah, because I struggle with that too, of just like, man, this guy did whatever it was, or this, leader did whatever he did or she did or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, nope, I'm going to throw baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
I mean, I had so the pastor who baptized me ended up leading his church not in a very good way. I'm just going to say that, that there was some stuff that happened. And caused a lot of pain in the wake, and he didn't handle it appropriately. And I remember one day just thinking like, man, why did I let that guy baptize me? Like, as I mean, not that baptism saves or anything like that, but it was a big moment in my walk with Christ. And I'm like, man, this guy, like, he was a great preacher and preached the word. And I mean, it was part of his preaching was why I left, Mormonism. And because it was just like, man, I'm hearing God's word preached from a guy who can preach, a guy who knows the Bible well and can expository preach it well and argue things. And like, it was just so good. And then when all that kind of stuff came out, I was like, man, he tainted my baptism. Like, he tainted my Christian walk. And I was like, no, he didn't. Like, it's not about that. Like, God used him for a time, even though he was a sinner and broken as well. God used him, and your walk is your walk. And so that's like, they're not related. It's not like God goes, oh, well, that guy did this, so therefore yours is, less than or whatever. So man, that's a cool thought to even just tie that back to Samson of like, man, Samson was broken and did terrible things, morally bad things, and yet Israel was saved. God still used him in a mighty way, and then put him in his Bible. Like, that's crazy, just crazy.
And then he gets mentioned again in the New Testament. I mean, that's even crazier to me.
Yeah, as like the Hall of Faith, like the dude to champion. Yeah. The same thing with David, though. Like with David and
even
like,
Solomon. Yeah.
Oh yeah, David, Solomon. I mean, you could really list anybody.
Yeah.
But like even David, it really bugs me sometimes of just like, David was a man after God's own heart. I'm like, yeah, but do you see David's folly? Did you see what happened to him? Like, and I don't know, maybe that's the justice side in me of, the Batman side of me that's wanting to have everything be right and put it in categories so that I can like rationalize it and think through it and go, okay, this is, if I do this, then good. And if I don't do this, then it's bad or whatever. And man, I'm glad I'm not calling the shots up there. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even going back to, a pastor that falls from grace or whatever it may be, it's like, I guarantee you there were a lot of people praying for whoever that is, picture X guy in your head. There were a lot of people praying for that guy and for what God is doing through him. And God answered some of those prayers, despite what they were doing in their own life,
Yeah. Yeah.
That is a cool thing just about how good God is and how sovereign he is, how in control of everything that he is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is a good thing. He can even use me in children's ministry somehow.
Yeah. It's very humbling to think that, because I think we as humans kind of rank sins, even though we're not supposed to, but we rank sins. And I mean, the one I'm thinking about, I'm just going to say it. I'm going to say his name. But Ravi Zacharias was the one guy that, huge apologist, did some really cool books and really was a lot of in my apologetics early on, was like, oh man, this dude's so smart. And he was, and he was brilliant and helped a lot of people be able to argue the faith. And I mean, like a brilliant mind. But he did some shady stuff and hurt a lot of people and hurt his family and hurt his wife. And like, man, it was such a huge fall. And yeah, you easily want to just go, yeah, no.
Especially him, where the fall happened after he died.
Yeah.
Like, and then you're just like, man, that just doesn't seem very just. But like, it rocked radio stations, and it's like one day they just had to decide, like, well, we've got this hour in the morning. What do we do with this?
Yeah, yeah.
How many people it affected.
But it's very humbling to have the perspective of, man, like I need Jesus as much as he does. And I'm not perfect either. And like we did with Samson, where we listed out his, 138, violations of the law. That was the only ones that were listed. It's easy to look at, the 1,038 and go, man, that's, Samson was so bad. I've only done 98, or 107 or whatever it was. it's a better perspective and a truer perspective is to go, now, man, if I've sinned and I've broken one law, I'm guilty as breaking all of them. Mm-hmm. And so I am, I come to the foot of the cross of just like, God, how could you even use me? How could you even love me? Your grace is so great. And just to see that side of things and just go, man, that could have been me. And praise God, it wasn't. And how can I love? How can I show grace? How can I forgive? How can I be humble in how God is using me and not, pride myself or whatever? Because I think pride is the main root, I think, of a lot of the falls of pastors or apologists or whoever, authors or whatever. It's just a lot of pride. It's that James was talking a couple weeks ago about how when Paul and Barnabas came in and they were like, oh, let's praise you, let's worship you, let's, put an altar up. And it's like, no, we're just guys. Like we're not the ones to look at. We're just messengers of the true God. So don't worship us. And I think when you do something well, especially when God is blessing it, it's easy to get prideful. It's easy to get in your own head and go, yeah, I am pretty good. Mm-hmm. So it's a good perspective.
Yeah, and it's a unique being on this side of ministry. I mean, like, I'm sure you could say this too, where it's like, I never imagined I would be where I'm at now. Like, there's no, like, it's weird to walk across the pastoral line, and you're like, man, like, it must just be this giant leap. And it's like, no, I stumbled across and I'm still on my face.
I was dragged across the line.
Yeah. I mean, like it seemed so big, especially when I was really, when my actions really started reflecting my belief,
Yeah.
Like I remember when that started, like it just seemed like this huge chasm, but it's like, no. I mean, it is a huge chasm, but the chasm is 100% filled by God. Mm-hmm. And anybody can cross that chasm because, like, God fills in your gaps miraculously.
Yeah.
I mean, if anybody knew me 10 years ago, even, you would not believe that I would be a children's pastor.
Yeah.
I mean, people always used to make fun of me because I'm like, I mean, this, like, I'm like serial killer house. Like, I've got nothing on my walls.
Yeah.
And like, except for like the one picture of somebody hung up as a joke and I just left it there, but it's like creepy now, like you open my drawers and they're like perfectly organized and like, very little personality. And then just like, I vividly remember having this conversation with Heather when I first started helping in children's ministry with her, because that was her heart, and it just grew into my heart as well. And but like I remember telling Heather, like, girls and boys are very different. And I remember like there was a point where I was like, when I started getting older, because I was pretty ignorant, just the way I grew up. But like, I just seriously thought it was like, maybe around 15, 16, boys and girls just part ways, But after working with kids, you're like, oh no, it's from birth. Yeah. There's a difference. And you may not be able to put your finger on it, but you're like, they're different.
Yeah. to teach them is different. How they play is different.
Yes. Yeah. From the very beginning. And you don't even need to generalize. It's just like, oh wow. And I remember that blowing my mind. Yeah. Like, wow, there's way more to this. And now here I am, and it's totally because of God, There's no question. Like there's no reason, there's no logical reason I would have changed otherwise. Like there's nothing in this world that would have changed my heart for children.
Yeah.
Yeah. Except for God. And I'm glad he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah. It's crazy. You said crossing the pastoral line. And I was just thinking about it. Like, I remember thinking, like, oh, man, they're a pastor. Like, they are so smart. Mm-hmm. They are, like, and I'm like, man, when, I guess once you get ordained or once you become, you get that title that you, like, the cosmos open up and you understand the Bible more. And I'm like, I feel like I'm the same guy. Like, I don't, there's nothing magical about the position. It's just like, this is just my job. Mm-hmm. And I'm now in charge of this. That's really what this is. And I've been given gifts, and you've been given gifts too. But yeah, you think there's that magical thing of like, man, I'm just gonna I'm gonna instantly, fall in love with serving kids, and things are gonna click. And it's like, no, I'm still me. I'm just now pastor me. So
yeah,
it's just
you and I had the conversation. Brenton's been helping me out in children's which has been pretty cool. I like having you there.
Yeah.
But that is not your favorite thing in the world.
It's not my gifting.
But you're doing it. And I remember you had a conversation with me, and I've told a lot of people this, but you were like, well, I mean, you've been with me for a lot of times, but you said like, man, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I told you that, and this is totally true. Like, that feeling never goes away. You just get more used to it. Yeah. So buckle up.
But the lie is like, you think that everybody else knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And like you walk in and you're like, oh man, they know where to stand. They know what to say. They know, and then really they're just like, I guess I'm going to stand here, and I guess I'm going to say this. Like like no one knows what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're all just spirit led, and just doing the best they can and serving the best they can. And we figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we've gone over this before. But the process of coming about these family services is kind of fun. It's kind of stressful too. This one was probably one of the more stressful ones, and I don't think it needed to be, but it just became that way.
Probably because we waited too long to do this.
Yeah. Well, and then it just has been a relentless 2 months, and the fall always is for me, which didn't help because I wrote the initial part of the script like a month ago, but then it took you a week to review it. Then it took me a week to review that.
Yep.
And then before we knew it, it was like, bam.
You're like, we got to do it this week.
Yeah.
Somebody said like, you guys should do this like more often. Yeah. I was like,
no,
we could barely do it this often.
Yes. Yeah. There's part of me. Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to, but yeah, it's a lot of work.
It is a ton of work.
And it's a huge blessing. And I don't want to say that as like I'm complaining. Like, it's a lot of work, but it's good work and it's fun. And I know a lot of people get a lot out of it, but yeah, it's a lot.
It is a lot. And the, well, I mean, basically the way we basically do this is, so I have a thing. I can't really act very well outside of myself. Like, I don't know what it is. It is and I just get very uncomfortable if I have to do it. Like, I would be super nervous if I have to act outside myself. So usually what happens is, I write a script, which is usually just basically an outline. I try not to get too carried away now. And then
why? Tell him why, Wesley.
Because Brenton's just going to rewrite it anyway. Which I'm fine with. I really am fine with. What is annoying is if I write it all the way out and then you change it, then it's annoying because it's just a waste of my time. So usually I'm just trying to write kind of the meat of it. Then you rewrite it with some jokes and make it flow better and transitions and make my thoughts actually fluid.
Yeah.
And then usually we start practicing it out loud, and then we don't like any of the jokes we do, and then we just keep joking around the entire time we're practicing. Then we write those jokes into the script because we're a little immature, and we find those jokes funny every single time.
Yeah, a lot of times when we're laughing on stage, that's us still laughing at our jokes.
Yes, yep, and that's kind of how they come about.
Well, and this time around, like I mean, Wesley is. If you guys don't know Wesley, he's really good at like peering into your soul and telling you your biggest sins. And so Wesley doesn't shy away from any of that stuff. And you've pegged me like man, like, yep, that's what I do. And yeah. So I like going into this script, I was like, okay, I want to maintain what you're saying, but kind of just draw it out and make it a little bit more, like you said, fluid.
Yeah.
And I think it worked. I mean, it felt a lot more natural.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, this one was a little bit different because we weren't targeting the story. We had a purpose with this story more so in the past where we've really analyzed the story itself. Where this time it was like kind of what we were talking about with our heroes of our own faith, whether that be a pastor or whoever brought us to faith or whatever. Kind of that thing of like it is really important to have faith in the one that gives strength, not in the strength.
Yeah.
And life will, if the sooner you figure that out, which none of us really do, but the more you realize that, the less hurts you will have going through life.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Speaking of, I'm just going to throw this at you. Who is your hero of the faith? Like if you had like your own personal hero, like I mean, you can say like Martin Luther King or whoever, like, but who is your Samson?
Yeah, so I've talked about this in a podcast a long time ago with James, I think. So I'm just gonna those of you that know him, we're gonna know him, and those of you that aren't. But it's a guy named Scott Lawrence, and he was here for a long time. And for those of you that don't know, I was raised Catholic, and like Catholics are just very regimented about like you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this. Well, it just ends when you leave high school. And so I'm like, well, it's kind of funny how God used it, but it's like, I was just like, well, what's the next thing?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it's a college group, I guess. Well, the Catholics don't have anything like that. At least at the time they didn't. And so I started looking for a college group, kind of found the one here at Orchards, and Scott and his wife were leading that group. And I remember like hearing some anti-Catholic things. Like he was never attacking Catholic, but just kind of like not everybody's saved, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, they get a second chance, like he's like, I don't think so, and I remember being angry. Like I remember being angry.
Yeah.
And I stopped coming for a while. And I don't know why. I kind of got into a friend group that was kind of coming. And so I started coming back. And I don't know why, but Scott just poured into me. I would be interested to know why me, I feel like of the group there, on paper, I made the least sense. I don't know why. And I met Heather, and then Heather was kind of a part of this as well during this time. And he was really into creation apologetics, and I just remember like learning some of that stuff and going like, there is other views that are really good that the world is trying to hide. Like, does that make sense? Like, I remember vividly feeling that, like why hasn't some of these things even been presented to me? Like, this stuff makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's logical to follow. And so I just kind of got this point where I was like, man, like, I just started just being kind of hung on every word that he said. And not that he's perfect, and I know he would not say that he is, but it just grew into where I kind of am now. He's kind of supporting me, and I remember when he told me that he was moving, like it hit me hard.
Yeah,
like I felt lost for a long time.
Yeah,
in fact, I would say up until shortly before I started working here, like if that had not worn off, I don't know that I would have taken this job. Like I just felt totally lost. And that was a bad pedestal to put him on.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't live up to it. That's not fair to him.
Yeah.
Also, I'm missing like who was doing the work.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I totally put him up on a hero pedestal for sure. But I love him. I miss him dearly. I wish he was here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times I'm like, I just wish he was here. And I could call him and I'm sure he would answer and talk to me, but I'm not very good at that.
Yeah. Yeah. I gotcha.
Yeah. But that would definitely be mine. 100%.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I remember you telling me that story.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I don't know why me. I'd be interested to know, but I also probably don't want to know,
Yeah.
But, and they poured into my wife and I together. It was just he taught me how to lead a little bit. And it was super messy. Like I think back to that time and I'm like, why did he let me do that? Like how how I could fail so miserably in some ways. Like I think back and I'm like, I can't believe I said that. I can't, and like, I never felt that from him though, you know, like I just felt like, no, this is part, you know, I'm here. You did a good job. Just keep going, you know?
Yeah.
So do you
man, that's cool.
Yeah. What about yourself?
His name's Wesley, and I do his job a lot. But
It's true. It's true. There's a, you know, our administrative or our whatever you want to call that job, office administrator, also does my job a lot.
But no, and I tease you. You do your job very well.
Yeah, thank you.
So do I. I have two heroes that I can think of. One of them I just shared about the pastor who baptized me. Was for a while he was a hero of mine. Like I was just like, man, this guy's so good, and like he's so smart. Like I want to be like him, and like man, it'd be so cool to know the Bible that well, and to speak with that authority, or to just be so confident in the Bible and confident in God, and to you know, like man, like I remember. I mean, it was a short time. It was a short season for me. But I was just like, man, he's so like he's a godly man, and then he fell from grace, and it was hard for me a little bit, and it was a good reminder of me, just you know, don't put people on a pedestal and whatnot. And I had a group of friends and family and Erlene's family that kind of were going through kind of the same things, and we all kind of were like, no, God's still in control. Like we just kept looking back to God, so that was good. It's really funny to say, but one of the hero of my faith is, and I say it's funny because my brother, who is not a believer, if you've plug for my book, if you've read my book, anyway, it's sold on Amazon.
You have a book?
I do.
You need to give me the audio version of that, because
I know.
I'm not going to read it.
I just give you the audio, and that's how you're going to go to sleep every night. It's just chapter 1.
I would listen to it. I would.
I don't want to read it to you, though. Anyway, but no, my brother growing up was, he was the guy that always believed. He had the faith, lived his convictions, and even now, I mean, he's got some weird convictions, but he still lives his convictions. But anyway, just growing up, I remember just seeing his faith, and even though you know it was the LDS faith, I remember watching him and just being like, man, my brother's like he believes this, and so I believed it. And then when he came back from his mission, he had some questions and was like just kind of wrestling through his own faith and just like, man, I still believe in God, but this seems weird. And like he was kind of wrestling with that. And that caused me to wrestle with my faith. And then, you know, years later, I became a pastor. It's kind of, I mean, I had to become a Christian first and then moving on. But he's always been one of those ones to me that I was like, man, I still look up to him. Maybe it's because he's my brother, or maybe because he's my older brother. But what's
the age gap? Are you okay telling me that?
Yeah. He is 4.5 years older, 5 years, something like that. Yeah. I mean, he graduated in 98 and I graduated in 2002. So yeah, 4 years ish. But he was a hero of mine, a hero of my faith. And oddly enough, like we don't have the same faith. But even when I was doing my seminary work or whatever, I'd call him up and talk to him about it and, you know, listen to his wisdom because he's a smart dude. And like I said, it's really weird to say that he is a hero of my faith when we don't believe at all. And we like not argue, but we have discussions back and forth. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, man, I just don't see it. And those conversations are hard, but I would still kind of put him in that category just because of what he meant to me in my faith of God. So,
but again, I mean, God works through that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question about that. Yeah, that's cool. I've never heard that before.
No.
Thanks for sharing that.
Well, if you had read my book, you would have.
Yeah, man. I'm not a.
I'm just kidding.
I'm a slow reader. My wife and I have this problem in devotionals. This is totally derailing. She reads very fast, and she wants to read at her pace, and I can't keep up.
You're like, I'm still looking at the pictures. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is pretty much how different we are in reading. And so we don't do devotions together very well because, the speed of which we wish to go through them is different. So anyway,
that's funny. My wife's a quick reader as well. And we were in a small group, and we were the youngest couple in the small group, and like they would have like all of us just read, and we'd kind of read through the Bible or this section of the book or whatever, and they gave it to Erlene, and she read, and they all like kind of stopped, and they're like, "How fast are you reading?" And she's like, "What?" And they're like, we couldn't keep up. Like we had to just like they put their books down and they just kind of sat and listened. It was really funny. And so then for the longest time, every time Erlene read, she had to go like, and lo and behold, like it was very slowed down. It was really funny.
And thus came her newscaster voice.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's good. From CSPN. That's an earlier callback.
Yeah.
Good call.
She's well practiced at that.
Yeah, and I tease. I actually don't even like talking about that I have a book. I mean, I joke around with people, but for those of you listening, like, I tease people, but I'm really not like I'm an author. Like, it's not a big deal. So just want you guys to hear that.
Yeah.
But anyways, moving.
Do you think
on.
if we published our scripts for the family service, if anybody buy them?
I thought about it.
Did you?
Mike, after you do, after we do the WB show or whatever, and you're on that high of like, man, that was so good. Mm-hmm. I'm like, other churches should do this because we do this really well. And then the next day, I'm like, I'm not going to know.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. What do you think we do well?
In the service?
Yeah, like when you leave the service, like what are you feeling like? Like what, regardless of actual successes or failures, or just like what are you feeling is like, wow, we just nailed that.
I think we do a really good job of talking through a biblical story in a way that is engaging for all people. I think if they're willing to hang out with us, like if they're willing to give us however much time, 20, 30 minutes, I think it's entertaining and engaging and challenging all in the same. I think we do a really good job of intermixing real questions. I mean, I think this past time when we were like, isn't that just a cop-out answer? Like to say, oh, he had faith, that's a cop-out answer. To be able to say that in a service and address that is huge because you don't really, I mean, we try to do it in preaching, but in that context, it's a little bit easier to throw out there because we're having a dialogue rather than a sermon preaching. So I think being able to address those questions and wrestle the text in a very informative and educational and entertaining way, I think we do that pretty well, I would say.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. No, I think so too. I mean, sometimes those questions are ones that we're wrestling with ourselves.
Yeah.
So
and we have to just answer it.
Yeah. Like we do need this in here, but we also don't know what's going on here, so we need to try to explain it. Yeah. And I think it works out good. This is probably gonna be a little choppy here, but it's what you get. You didn't ask us any questions, so you get choppy.
You just get rattling off.
That's right.
The first thing that comes to mind.
That's right. I do hope you're listening. And one of the things of these family services that was important to me, and I remember you and I writing down like kind of the goals on our first family service, the Zacchaeus one.
Yeah, classic.
Yeah,
classic.
It was a classic one. That one.
Still one of my favorites.
It is, yeah. It went so well. And I mean, I don't want to get too caught up in stuff, but like the spiritual warfare before that one, like how sick I was, and you being gone.
Yeah.
And like it was amazing that got pulled together the way it did.
Yeah.
And I was so sick, and you were sick because you had gotten sick. Anyway, I remember, I'm getting off tangent here, but I remember timing my medicine because I was like, I don't want to be higher than a kite, but I needed to last through the 10:30 service.
I want to be able to see straight.
I don't want it to wear off. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that was a ton of fun. But when we were planning even that initial one, like, we know how hard it is as parents to lead your kids in the way that they should go. Like it is. I think every parent feels the weight of it. And I think parents have good intentions with the things they do, but like it's just really easy to get in the weeds and then just go, man, I like my feet are stuck. Like I'm here, you know?
Yeah.
And it's so easy to, and I've shared this before on a podcast, and I'll share it again. Like here's just a simple thing that happened to me. And I'm a pastor, so like hear this as somebody who's just like you. We used to pray with my boy, before he went to bed, and like it was a fun thing. And we'd pray for certain things or certain people, and he would bring up people, and his sphere of influence was pretty small, so it was a lot of praying for the same people, same things over and over.
Yeah.
It was a good thing, and he enjoyed it, and he would join in it. Then he started making up people that weren't real, and then it slowly morphed into like this delay, so he didn't have to go to bed. And then we just stopped. Like we just, Heather and I just couldn't reel it back in.
Yeah.
Like we tried. And it became a stressor for us. The bedtime routine was already getting out of control for us.
Yeah.
He wasn't sleeping very good. It was all these things, and we just stopped. And we never really got back into it. Like still to this day, we haven't. Like we've tried to put in some different things in that spot, but, like I think that's the struggle with a lot of things, whether it's you're trying to do devotionals or scripture memorization or just trying to read a Bible story. And so one of the things about these family services is like we know how hard it is, and we hope that these are like an opportunity for you to join along us in that struggle.
Yeah. Like
we're in that same boat as parents. And we hope that this can be a time where you come with your family, you hear the same message, you hear us wrestling through that message as well. And you go, we just hope that you feel encouraged that, hey, we went through this together as a family. We heard the same message. And I can leave here and we can try to wrestle through these things as a family outside of the church walls. And even if it doesn't work out that way, just giving you the opportunity to take advantage of that, even just that once a quarter, I think it's just so beneficial. Yeah.
Yeah. One, also having your kids see you giving priority to God, I think is a huge deal.
It is.
Man, I'm in there too. There's so many things that are running through my mind as you're talking about just difficulties of parenting. Oh, man. And we pray often of like, man, God, just please be with our kids. Please heal our kids, heal their heart, heal their mind. Fill the gap from how good of a parent I'm supposed to be to, where I am. Can you fill that gap with your grace? Because that is a widening gap. And, man, even in failures and stuff like that, like just for your kids to, I think there's a way that we as parents can do that well and do that in a very harmful way. Like we can be bad parents, whatever that looks like in your mind, and then come to church and pretend everything's okay and pretend like, oh no, God's got this and everything's great. And, like kind of that duality of faces. Or you can come to church and just be like, man, I'm broken and I need this time. I need this time with God to repent. I need this time with God to pray over my family, to pray over my household. I need to be fed God's word because I want to be a better parent. I want to do this well. And I want you to see that even in my mistakes, even in my struggles, I'm still leaning into God. I'm still doing this. And the family services are kind of an opportunity to do that for you. And even as we move forward in this new phase in our church of having everybody, worship music together, singing along and stuff like that is a time that we can really communicate to our kids with our actions, communicate with our presence of, I need this. Like, this is just not something that I'm doing because I want something to do on Sunday morning or Monday night. Like, this is not just filler. Like, this is life-giving. This is what I need. I need God's grace. I need God's wisdom. I need God's forgiveness. I need God's sovereignty in my life. I need to be reminded of these truths because we all fall short of the glory of God, especially as parents. When you're responsible for 1, 2, 3, 7 little ones, and you're responsible for, not only just keeping them alive, because they do a lot of weird things. Like, that's going to kill you. Don't do that.
Yeah.
But also their spiritual health. Like, you are not responsible for it, but you're responsible to guide them. You're responsible to teach them, to pray over them, to lead them, to guide them. And man, that's hard. That's a hard job. And so as a church, we don't want to fail you and not give you opportunities in which to show your kids that this matters. And not only this matters because you're willing to wake up early and get dressed and come out here on a weekend, but you're paying attention because you need this, and you are praying over yourself as well. And they see your heart. They see that you're not perfect, but but you're leaning into God. You're leaning into Christ, and we want to give you more and more opportunities to do that. And I think that speaks volumes. I mean, I hope that speaks volumes to kids to see not only their parents, but their friends' parents and, their neighbors down the street or the people that they see in small group time or whatever, that, man, everybody needs Jesus and everybody needs God's grace. Everybody needs all that. So that's what we're trying to do, is create that space for you to do that.
Yeah. And I've been spending, especially since I've worked here, a lot of time wrestling with some of these things, and then becoming a parent myself, changed some of that stuff. But we're at a point where children's and youth ministry does, I think, need to shift. I don't want to get into that conversation too much, but I really believe God has a plan and a strategy for us here at OCC in the LC Valley. Like, I can't explain it. I feel very confidently of that. And I think it's through families. I think 100%. And I think, and not to burden anybody, but your job as a parent, whatever messiness that looks like, is really important. And there's a lot of people that want to come alongside you and struggle with you. But it is a huge importance that you try, that you put the effort forward. And I mean, again, that is why we're creating these opportunities, is for you to come alongside us, who is also struggling with it. Because, please correct me if I get too far in the weeds here. Whip out your MDiv at some point if you need to. I don't want to go off the rails too much here. So please do. I don't want to be I don't totally understand, and I don't know that any of us will totally understand, how much God is in control. But I think in parenting, sometimes that's handed over too much of God's in control. But when you look in Scripture, at King David or Solomon, even Noah, and some of the parents of the Bible, God is in control for sure. There's no question about that. However, their consequences for their actions rippled through generations. I mean, Solomon and King David especially, I mean, decades, if not centuries of consequences for their bad actions. And we do have that. There is some weight there.
Some generational weight.
Yes, that we carry. I don't know where that line is. I don't understand. I know God is at work in that. It's not clear, but it isn't worth that bet to me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to bet on God bailing me out. He totally can, and he totally will. But, like, I'm going to play my part in this the best I can. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. No MDiv required for that. But, yeah, no, there is, I mean, I have parental issues with my parents, and there's a lot of deep-seated stuff that happened through me, and the generational curse is I wasn't given the proper tools to parent my kids, but I come to church and I rub shoulders with people who love Jesus and love me and love my kids as much as I do, and talk through things. And hey, man, I'm struggling with this, and people are praying for me, and like there is. Yes, like you said, there's a generational aspect to, I mean, really everything. I mean, Adam's sin is a generational, consequence. So, I mean, we get it, but God's grace is more than the generational curse, so to speak. And a lot of times, if we do church well, if we do the Christian life well, and I don't mean like we do it perfectly, but I mean if we are being the church to one another, if we are praying for one another, if we show up and we just use the gifts that God gave us to further the body, further the kingdom, to just, be a shoulder to cry on or lean on or whatever. If we do that well, that aspect of being a church, then we are helping to kind of rid that generational curse, because people like me that came in with really no resources now have a community to go to and go, hey, I can talk to this person because I'm struggling with this, or I know this person and they might have connections so that I can, see any resources that I need, or maybe they've read a book that they could show me, or, you know what I mean? Like, there's ways that we can be the church if we do it well. If we don't do it well, if we're not meeting together, if we're not in the practice of living out our faith, then we're in silos. I don't know.
No, yeah. I mean, I think that's spot on. And just I hope I'm not adding too much burden to everybody. So I apologize if I am. So I'm going to give you a little nugget of yeah. And this comes from me and Brenton talking about this a lot over the last couple of weeks. Not this service, but just parenting. There are two places you can start right now in parenting, I think. I think there's your faith becomes your action. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on here, but I trust that God is sovereign over my life. I think that's the first thing you can do. And reveal that to your kids. I mean, I think going, man, I don't know. I don't understand this story. I don't, but God is good. I clearly see that. I know what Jesus has done in my life. Let's start there and we'll wrestle together. I think that's something you do right now. I also think having humility. So the faith and that go hand in hand, but going, man, I've had to do this week, man, I'm sorry, buddy. Like, I messed up. I shouldn't have done that to you. You were an image bearer of God. I should not have treated you that way.
Yeah.
Like, those are two very hard, but also very easy things for you to start doing right now.
Yeah.
Difficult to do, but you can start right now. No matter how close to the pastoral line you think you are.
Yeah. Well, I think that's good, because I think the second kind of emphasizes the first of you just saying, like, to be like real in your faith, saying you're sorry, being humble enough to admit your mistakes and go, I need God. I should, image bearer of, you're an image bearer of God, and you have value. and God values you, and I didn't show you that value, and I'm sorry. Like that perspective to show kids that they matter, to show kids that they have something to contribute, that they are people, and they matter, comes from a position of really just having that faith and trusting. Like, I don't have all the answers, but I know God exists. You know, I've seen him move in my life, and I trust him. I think you can say that and not mean it, but you can't be humble and, you know, apologize and live out the gospel if you're not really fully having that faith. So like I said, you can say the first one of like, hey, no, I don't know what's going on, but God's there, but really not have that heart change. But if you do have that heart change, and that will come out in humility, I think that makes that first one so much easier. Mm-hmm. If that made sense. I feel like I stumbled over that. But
it made sense to me. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Good enough for me then. Yeah. 3.
You not so smart, so
I mean, you can't even read. So
good stuff.
All right, you should wrap this up.
Yes, we should.
It's what, an hour and 45 minutes. We're going.
It's a new lap record.
I wonder how many people now have that stuck in their heads, because I've had that stuck in my head. Every time you guys hand me the podcast and I'm like, I'm going to edit it, I'm like, it's a new lap record. Anyways, so this coming up week, we are going to have kids in service, kids, youth, young adults, adults, birth through, well, I mean, if you want to drop your kids off in nursery, you can. Mm-hmm. But all the way up, everybody, all ages, together, singing worship to God together. And then we'll dismiss you guys. And then whoever wants to stay in the service can stay in the service. And then kids will be dismissed. Youth will be dismissed. Go to our, respective areas and get a lesson and study and crafts and games and all those things that we typically do. But we're all going to worship together. And again, the reason for that was Popcorn and Wesley.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is that, well, one, honestly, the easiest thing is that it is good for us to be together in worship. I mean, it is good. It's scriptural. I've looked a lot at it recently. It is scriptural for us to be together, but kids need to see. They need to see worship. Like I think the team does a good job. No knock on the team here, but like we can't teach worship. We can't, downstairs. It's impossible. It is something that they have to see, and I think that's important. Also, I think their energy and their faith is unique as a child, and is good for us as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Mutually beneficial.
Yeah. And the rest of this podcast. If you listen to the rest of this podcast, hopefully you also see some of the reasons why we're doing this.
Yeah. Please rewind and listen.
Please rewind and listen. Go ahead and put it on 1.25 speed or 1.5 speed because it's long.
And then we're going to be studying through Anchored again. We'll finish that up in a couple weeks. It'll butt up against Thanksgiving. But we are talking through the Jewish Council, right?
The Jerusalem
Council.
Yeah.
Yeah. And kind of going through Acts 15 to 35. Acts 15, 12 to 35. Yeah. So we'll be going through that, and you'll have to show up and see what James is going to talk about there. I don't know what direction he's going to take it, but I'm sure it's good. It's always pretty good. So
picking up on a cliffhanger.
Yeah. Yeah. He said normally pastors just roll through that whole thing, and he broke it up. So it'd be interesting to see why he did that. Mm-hmm. So, yep. So show up at 9, 10:30 on Sunday mornings, or Saturday. Don't show up on Saturday. Monday night at 7 p.m. And would love to worship with you. Love for you to be a part of the body. But that's all the time we have, because it's getting long. Thank you guys for joining us for Midpoint. If you have any questions or anything like that, you can send it in to occ.podcast@lewistonocc.org. You can email or text that address. Otherwise, we hope to see you in service. drop in, say hi to us, let us know what you think, and how we can help you, how we can serve you, how we can be praying for you. But otherwise, we'll see you soon. Know that you are loved by God and OCC.
Amen. Take care.